And now it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is Reverend Brian Jones. He is a minister and teacher at the Arlington Metaphysical Church, and he was ordained by the United Metaphysical Churches. Reverend Mark, Reverend Randy, and myself had the honor and the pleasure to share time together during seminary in our path of spiritual growth. We are happy that he's joined us today to share an inspired message and a meditation. Reverend Brian, I will now turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Pam. It's such an honor to be here and share this moment with you. And I really wanted to just how inspired that opening musical selection, that opening hymn was, because it really reflects, I think, for almost all of us, that fundamental philosophical question that is the first step towards our journey in divine metaphysics. And it's whatever faith we grow up in. It's that conflict between, and I will say, growing up in the Methodist Church as a young boy, I'm told that God is everywhere, and therefore everywhere obviously applies within me. And yet somehow I'm being told that I need to let God into my heart. And that tension between those two perspectives were a conundrum for me growing up as a boy. And I've heard other metaphysicians experience the same conflict when we realize the challenge isn't to just let God in my heart, it's to let the God that's in my heart back out. And we all know that. It's the first step on divine metaphysics. I think that for most of us, that God is to this point, that it is our faith in action, not just letting God into our heart, but letting it back out in what I like to call applied metaphysics. But the scripture this morning is a simple but powerful seed from the book of John, chapter 12, verses 36. Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you may become children of light. And in this seed, I think it's reflected in a song that came out when I was about 5 years old by the American folk singer John Prine. And I'm going to read some of the lyrics from it. The song is called Hello in There. And it is, you can find it on YouTube after the service and listen to it while you're going about your Sunday morning. But here's some of the lyrics from John Prine's folk song from 1971, Hello in There. We had an apartment in the city, and me and Loretta liked living there. Well, it had been years since the kids had grown a life of their own and left us alone. John and Linda live in Omaha, and Joe is somewhere on the road. We lost Davy in the Korean War, and I still don't know what for. It don't matter anymore. You know that old trees just go stronger, and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello. Hello in there. Me and Loretta, we don't talk much more. She sits and stares through the back door screen, and all the news just repeats itself like some forgotten dream that we've both seen. Someday I'll go and call up Rudy. We work together in the factory, but what could I say if he asks what's new? Nothing. What's with you? Nothing much to do. You know that old trees just go stronger and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say, hello in there. Hello. So if you're walking down the street sometime and spot some hollow, ancient eyes, please just don't pass them by and stare as if you didn't care. Say hello in there. Hello. Now, that song was written when John Prine was just 22, working as a mailman by day while honing his songwriting skills at night. But part of his mail route included this retirement home, and as Prine would go from room to room, he making his deliveries, some of the residents he found, they would pretend that he was a grandson or a nephew coming to visit. And the young Prine was so moved by some of their stories that he memorialized them in these lyrics. And the song helped make his eventual first album a hit a few years later. Now, after his death in 2020, John Prine's family established the Hello in There Foundation with the mission to identify and collaborate with individuals and communities to offer support for people who are marginalized, discriminated against, or for any reason otherwise forgotten. So listen again to the chorus of his song. You know that old trees just grow stronger, and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say, hello in there, hello. Now, at 22, far removed from his old age, I can understand Prine's perception of later life. And I wonder, as he reached his 70s, if perhaps he discovered that, like old trees and rivers, that he too was wilder and stronger. Still, his lyrics at 22 years of age were never a condemnation, and his family foundation bears this out. It's a reminder to reach out. You never know someone's story, and we should never pass up an opportunity to slow down our own lives for a moment to weave a small thread between another person. Now, I confess, I just turned 60 and I was born at a different time in a smaller community, and it was the fashion to greet passersby. I remember one time when I was very young out with my mother, as I was exchanging hellos with people, and then this one woman said nothing back. She didn't acknowledge us. And when we were out of earshot, I said, Mom, she didn't say hi back. And my mom's reply, well, maybe she needed your hello more than you needed hers. Well, I was tongue-struck by this little pearl of wisdom from my mother. And here I was, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I was full of hellos. And perhaps to my mother's chagrin, I went on a tear of friendliness until we got home. Hello in there. The simple act of human-to-human kindness without expectation or reciprocation, it seems like such an earthly thing to do. A rabbi would call it a mitzvah. And I once heard a Buddhist teacher call it stealth dharma. And despite being so simple to do not discount that this too is spiritual work. There's a nod to an old hymn. It's a way of blooming where you're planted. Now, I have a confession to make that as a minister and as a metaphysician, I have commitment issues. I have a problem sticking to a single perspective of any metaphysical lesson. I just can't get, maybe it's my ADD, but I can't get myopic and focus on one track. And so I'm always compelled to turn a scripture, a biblical story, a lesson, or a metaphor on its head and ponder it from different angles. And so it goes with this notion of hello in there. And when I consider Prine's song titled Metaphysically, it conjures Namaste. The God in me greets the God in you. And to explore this divine self within all living things, I had to turn to the Upanishads, which is some Hindu scripture, specifically the Kathopanishad, because it's this sacred text that really explores the nature and scope of our true self, our spark, our divine self, or what they call the Atman, A-T-M-A-N, the Atman. And here's some of that scripture. It is through Atman that one perceives all objects in sleep or in the waking state. Having realized the vast, all-pervading Atman, the calm soul does not grieve. The size of a thumbprint, it is like a flame without smoke. The Lord of the past and the future, it is the same today and tomorrow. He who knows the individual soul, the experiencer of the fruits of action, as Atman, always near, and the Lord of the past and the future will not conceal themselves from others. This verily is that. Or in Sanskrit, Tat Dvam Asi. This is that. Meaning that the Atman, the true self, is the same as the divine, no separation. Now, Namaste is easy to say after a round of yoga, and I watched a Bollywood comedy last night, and of course they were greeting each other with Namaste. But it's more elusive in spiritual application. The description of being like a thumbprint is likening it to the center of a lotus flower. And I loved that the email that I got from Reverend Pam had this lotus with an Om floating above it in the body of the email. But it is likened to the center of a lotus flower, hidden beneath endless petals. Now, another verse in the Kathopanishad describes it as smaller than a grain of rice. Now, seeing and embracing our mutual divinity is easy in shared spaces and shared moments like this. But out in the wild, the divinity within can sometimes be buried beneath layers of humanity. The Sunday school song, This Little Light of Mine, tells us not to hide it under a bushel, but yet, because of the human experience, it gets hidden. Not only from others, but hidden from ourselves. Our faith assures us that even among the most spiritually challenged of us, there still is a divinity within. Again, albeit hidden under a bushel. Knowing that as a last resort, when we turn away from someone, we are turning away from the bushel. We are not denying their inner light. Now let me repeat that little nugget of good advice at the human level. Know that when, as a last resort, we must turn away from someone, we are turning away from the bushel. We are not denying their inner light. Now, still understanding that divinity lies within everyone is different from seeing that divinity, knowing that divinity. And when I turned this notion of hello in there inward, I was compelled to examine my own relationship, as funny as this may seem, my own relationship with my Atman. The Kathopanishad describes the Atman as the owner and rider of a chariot, which is the body. And I love this metaphor. This is so cool. I use it all the time now. Again, the Atman is the owner and the rider of a chariot, which is our body. The intellect is the driver. The mind is the reins, and our emotions and senses are the horses. In reflecting on this, I keenly know that my body, my thoughts, my feelings, but my divine self is still revealing itself, still unfolding. And because of this, I spend more time engaged with my body, my heart, my mind. Now, not long ago, a medium who works with the animal realm told me that in order to connect with my pet who is in spirit, I should picture my beautiful beagle Gus. I wish I had a picture of him right now. A picture of my beautiful Gus in his prime, active and happy. And in doing so, I would call forth the vitality of my relationship with Gus, because that energy would become a bridge, and over time, making that spiritual connection make stronger and stronger, building a stronger and stronger and a wider bridge. And like all metaphysical points, again, I couldn't help but turn that inward towards my relationship with my Atman, or my higher self. Because despite our metaphysical wisdom, our divine self can seem elusive and mysterious. And yet, like the writers of the Upanishads, we can and should visualize it, actualize it, celebrate it, and let that relationship begin with hello in there. Now, there's a channeled spirit called White Eagle that has published many books, and a minister friend of mine, Reverend Brian Funk, has channeled White Eagle. But in one of the writings of White Eagle, these inspirational channeled writings, White Eagle shares that what I've described, this is the higher meaning of the scripture, "Lo, I am with you always." And in the channeled book, The Quiet Mind, White Eagle reminds us every day on waking and many times during the day, particular when you are being overwhelmed and harassed by the affairs of the physical life, pause and remember that this is the little self, the human personality which is being tried. And then understand that above you in the invisible realms is that greater self, the Christ self. Look into that form of glorious color, that radiant life, and you will feel infinite power flowing into your person. You will be conscious, above your personality, of a self which is limitless, which is living God. Now I'm going to transition into our meditation, because I actually at least from my personal experience, and it might be the same with you, is I spend so much time talking about, I talk to my body, feet don't fail me now. I talk to my brain, come on, think. I talk to my heart, get over it. I have relationships for better or for worse about with these aspects. But again, this is just the chariot, the horses, the reins. But the true passenger, the God within me, the Atman, because God flows through me, what is my relationship with it? And I haven't spent time visualizing my Atman at my best self. And so I have, thanks to some of my trainings and meditations, I have begun to say, instead of get over it, come on, big dummy, you can do this, or you've got this. I say, thank you for being here. Let's do this. Let's do this. I've become to visualize my Atman, my divine self, more vividly and more specifically, bringing the Atman to the fore, making it a true partner in my life so that it can break through the bushel and reveal itself.